Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari. Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana. Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana. Jamuna Tiravana Jadi. Jamuna Tiravana Jadi. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana. Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana. Jamuna Tiravana Jadi. Jamuna Tiravana Jadi. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Astatara Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaur Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, I've been reading from Canto 10, Chapter 12. That's the Krishna's killing of Aghasura. And the chapter begins very very pleasantly describing what the cowherd boys do each day. Krishna's now at 5 years of age. He's still with the calves. Coming up is the Brahma Vimohan Lila. So the beginning part is the boys are having a great time. And it describes their playful activities. And at the end of that section, Shukadev Goswami just bursts out into a spontaneous appreciation of how fortunate are these cowherd boys. And he says it in many different ways, but keeping it simple for just review of the chapter. The Gyanis, the yogis, the devotees, the materialists, this is how they regard Krishna. And the happiness that they're experiencing, the happiness of Brahma Sukh merging, the happiness of the Dasya Bhakta who sees the Lord as supreme and with folded palms worships him, the yogi who after many, many lifetimes in meditation meditates upon his lotus feet, cannot touch even a particle of dust from his feet. But the cowherd boys are playing with him all day long. They're playing with him. How fortunate are they? And all the residents of Braja, and he just goes into this, interrupting the flow of describing the pastime to describing the Krita Punya Punja, the many lifetimes of pious activities, who knows, to become eligible for that relationship with Krishna. And that section ends with that expression. The next section begins with saying, Shukadev Goswami saying that Krishna summons Aghasura by his Yogamaya potencies. It was part of a plan, a Leela of Krishna, because he wanted to liberate him. And he wanted to do a number of other things after that also. So he came, and the cowherd boys, they're in this very joyful, exuberant, what's next? What's the next fun activity? And then they see this giant serpent. And so they start to wonder, what is that? We've never seen that here before. And some say maybe this, some say maybe that, and so on and so on. And even if he is a demon trying to harm us, we have so much experience. Krishna will always protect us. Let's go explore. So with their arms raised and frolicking in the same mood that all the other previous verses, and into the mouth of Aghasura they go. And following right behind them are the calves with their tails raised, and they're frolicking in, joining the cowherd boys, and Krishna's watching the whole thing. Then there's a very interesting little pause, very important also. Krishna becomes overwhelmed by his own Yogamaya potency. Seeing what he's seeing, he's like, he didn't want them to enter the mouth, but they enter the mouth, and he's Satya Sankalpa means Sankalpa. There's that word again. Whatever he desires, it happens. He doesn't have to lift the pinky. Doesn't have to do anything. He just has to have this Sankalpa, and it's voila. It happens. But it didn't happen. They entered the mouth. And he became bewildered. He was all conscious, all everything, by the influence of his own Yogamaya potency, because he wanted to experience that. Then comes a very delicate, Aghasura had a little bhakti moment. This becomes important in the later section. We discussed this. Doesn't specify it, but the Acharya's comment, Aghasura, understood that Krishna is feeling separation from the cowherd boys are feeling separation from Krishna, and he wanted to facilitate Krishna getting together with the cowherd boys. I mean, he had this other big desire, he wanted to kill him. So that little drop of bhakti made him eligible to get not just merging, but to get another kind of liberation, a Vaishnava liberation, Salokya and Sarupya Mukti, formed like the Lord in Vaikuntha. So Krishna knew what to do. He entered the mouth of Aghasura, and he expanded his body bigger, 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 and Aghasura died. He couldn't breathe. And the soul purposefully was made brilliant because souls are too small to see, but made effulgent like the Jyoti of Krishna's body, but that smaller portion of Jyoti of the soul, until Krishna left the body of Aghasura and merged into the body of Krishna and was liberated. And then comes the next section, where the astonishment, the demigods saw this happen. They showered flowers and beat kettle drums, and they were celebrating that Aghasura had been killed, because that was one of the purposes for Krishna coming, was to alleviate the earth of the burden of demoniac kings, and he was one of them. He was one of Kamsa's main guys, and he's dead. So they celebrated, and the cowherd boys, just appreciating Krishna. They didn't see his divinity at any time, nor at this time. They just like, wow, Krishna did it again. Let's go have lunch. So then Shukadeva Goswami starts entering into discussing with Maharaj Parikshit the glories of Krishna. That's the current section. And some people, when they hear this description of Aghasura, they go, how is it possible? He was such a bad person. How did he become eligible for liberation? And then there's some discussion about how that happened. What's the eligibility for liberation from the hand of Krishna? So this interesting discussion about Krishna's being equal to everyone. And when he's killing demons, he's equal to everyone. And when he's having lunch with the cowherd boys, he's equal to everyone. And when he's doing with Brahma what he does with Brahma, he's equal to everyone. He doesn't change his position of being equal to everyone. He just reciprocates differently with different persons. So then this section that we're going to read this evening is different commentaries on 10.12.39, which is summarized, Jiva Goswami summarizes in Bhakti Sandarbha this way. It's not the BBT translation, it's his. If even only once, or even by force, one brings the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead into one's mind, one can attain the supreme salvation by the mercy of Krishna, as did Aghasura. Shukadeva speaking. What then is to be said of those whose hearts the Supreme Personality of Godhead enters when he appears as an incarnation, or those who always think of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the source of transcendental bliss for all living entities, and by whom all illusion is completely removed. So his commentary reads, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is never troubled by blasphemy or any other offense, therefore one should always meditate on him, somehow or other, by any means available. They who meditate on the Supreme Lord's effulgence merge into the Lord's effulgence. And they who meditate on the Lord because they hate him also merge into the Lord's effulgence. By thus merging, these persons become purified of their blasphemies and other sins. that such persons attain sayuja, mukti, impersonal liberation, is described in these words of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 1. So this is the background is, how did Aghasura get what he got? How did he get liberation? Some people ask that. That same question is asked very directly by Yudhishthira Maharaj to Narada after they all witnessed in the royal assembly that Shishupal lost his head, Sudarshan Chakra, and his soul merged into the body of Krishna, and they all saw it. So Yudhishthira was like, huh? He was such a bad person. Aghasura was such a bad person. Shishupal, right in front of them, not a pastime in Vrindavan what nobody saw. They saw Shishupal behave like Shishupal behaved his whole life. He was so inimical. And he got liberation, so Yudhishthira wants to know how. And then the answer that's given there is he absorbed his mind, it's many things, but he absorbed his mind in enmity. So hatred, there specifically two are mentioned, hatred and fear. Hatred and fear. So Kam says fear and Shishupal is hatred. And they were very Krishna conscious. Always thinking of Krishna. Not favorably, they weren't bhaktas, but thinking of Krishna constantly. So they became purified because the object they were thinking of was the Supreme Pure. So Narada says to Yudhishthira, therefore, by enmity or by devotional service, by fear, by affection, that makes four, or by lusty desire. By all of these or any one of them, if a conditioned soul somehow or other concentrates his mind upon the Lord, the result is the same. For the Lord, because of his blissful position, is never affected by enmity or friendship. Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dvesho stina priya. That verse comes up a whole bunch in this commentary. It's explaining in the Bhagavatam's language. It's explained in Bhagavad Gita. It's explained in this 7th canto, not just chapter 1, but the whole chapter is explaining the relationship between Krishna and living entities. Sambandha. Relationship between Krishna and living entities. And whether they're this, that, the other, Krishna is equally affectionate, and he reciprocates differently according to how they regard him. Also Bhagavad Gita. Yayata mam prapadyante tang stataiva bhajam. So it's explaining this in the graduate study position, the Bhagavatam. So there's 5. Enmity, fear, affection, sneha, lusty desire, kama, and devotional service, following the vidhis of devotional service. The goal, think of Krishna. The word yujat in this verse by Narada means if one is not able to meditate on the Lord with love, lust, or in any favorable way, then one should meditate on him in whatever way one can, even if, that's this yujat, if that means to meditate on him with hatred. Somehow or other, one should think of the Lord alone and nothing else. Nikshate pratak. That's this next level question. Thus the mind is fixed on the Lord. That is the meaning. Here, the word vairena means with enmity, and nirvairena means without enmity, or in a neutral way. Thus one may meditate on the Lord without passionate desire or hatred or any other emotion. But if you meditate without emotion, it's not as effective. That is the meaning here. When one meditates yujat on the Lord without enmity and without fear, concentrating with full concentration of the mind, that meditation is known as devotional service, bhakti yoga. That is the meaning. The word sneha, meaning affection, which is different from lust, kama. This means mutual, sincere love, sneha. The Supreme Personality of God becomes attracted to his affectionate devotee. Supreme Lord becomes attracted to his affectionate devotee. I'll say it again until they get settled. So this sneha is a more advanced stage than following regulations. We follow regulations and there may not be affection. But when there's affection, that's the Lord reciprocates with our regulative bhakti, and he takes special interest when that regulative bhakti or the kirtan or the deity worship or the reading or the doing your homework or anything else is done with a purpose of pleasing Krishna, with affection for Krishna, not just task accomplishing attention, but with affection. Let me somehow find some way to please Krishna with this, whatever this is, the involvement in things of this world. That's sneha. Now here comes a similar but different. The approach is different. This is, again, Jiva Goswami, and the source is Krishna Sandarbha. And he wants to explain, he is going to explain Krishna's form, his swarup. So he starts with reference to Bhagavad Gita 1150, that's the universal form chapter. Sanjaya said to Dhritarashtra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, having spoken thus to Arjuna, displayed his real four-armed form, and at last showed his two-armed form, Swakam Rupam, thus encouraging the fearful Arjuna. That's the verse. Commentary. In this verse, Krishna identifies the four-armed, human-like form as his own form, Swakam Rupam. It is clear that the universal form is not directly his swarup. Therefore, Arjuna, the highest devotee, did not desire that form, but rather Krishna's own form. Earlier than that verse quoted, Arjuna says, I am delighted, having seen what was unseen before, but at the same time my mind is greatly troubled with fear. When Krishna says that to see the universal form he will give Arjuna divine eyes, he shows his generosity, but these are just words, for to see the personal form of Krishna requires sight, endowed with the Lord's special Shakti, and it cannot be seen with material eyes. So even non-devotees or demons that saw Krishna, they couldn't see Krishna without Krishna enabling them to see Krishna. He gave divine eyes to Kamsa and the washerman and Agasura and everybody. Otherwise they couldn't see him. So it's not the divine eyes to see the universal form, but the divine eyes to see Krishna's form. Then he gives references, Padma Purana reference. Narakriti Param Brahma. Krishna is the Supreme Brahman in human form. From Brahma's prayers in 10th Canto, Chapter 14. Tad Amitam Brahmadvayam Shishyate. Or, then after making the universal forms disappear, you remained as unlimited Brahman Krishna, beyond anything else. I'll skip the Sanskrit. This is spoken by King Nriga. O Almighty One, how is it that my eyes see you here before me? Or, again, Brahma's prayers. He gives the jivas the experience of bliss by destroying all Maya completely. No, excuse me. That's this verse. This Aghasura story. I'll see it again. He gives the jivas the experience of bliss by destroying all Maya completely. And then Bhagavad Gita, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya, I am not manifest to all people. All those are scriptural references meant to show you can't see Krishna's form without his mercy to see his form. Thus, giving Arjuna heavenly eyes means that Krishna gave him eyes of a devata to see the universal form, since his natural vision was capable of seeing Parabrahman in human form, Krishna. That Krishna's form cannot be seen by celestial eyes is stated, again, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, text 52. The human form of mind, this is Krishna to Arjuna, the human form of mind which you are seeing is very difficult to see, even when the devas are always longing to see this form. This is Jiva Goswami's continuing commentary. However, that form can be seen by bhakti. That has also been stated. Only by ananya bhakti, bhaktya tvananyaya shakya, aham evam vidorjana. This is same 11th chapter Bhagavad Gita. Only by ananya bhakti is it possible to know me, see me, or even merge with me, O Arjuna. So this is commentary related to the statement by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit, somehow or another absorb the mind in Krishna. And when does have the mind absorbed in Krishna, then there's the possibility of seeing Krishna, connecting with Krishna, being going to Krishna. Then continuing in Krishna Sandarbha, text 27, Jiva Goswami writes, at this point, a host of foolish critics will certainly raise a great childish commotion as they insist that the universal form is the original feature of the absolute truth. These critics will support their claim with the explanation that Sri Krishna gave Arjuna divine eyes to enable him to see the universal form. 11.8. For this reason, they will say, the universal form is the original feature of Godhead. To answer these childish objections, I shall now list some of the verses from the Vedic literature that explain that Sri Krishna is the original feature of the absolute truth. It's a long list, but for our purification. From Padma Purana, the original feature of the absolute truth is his human-like form. Brahma, from his prayers, 14th chapter, says, O Krishna, you are the non-dual absolute truth who remains unchanged after the cosmic manifestation is annihilated. And later, same chapter, how greatly fortunate are Nanda Maharaj, the cowherd men, and all the inhabitants of Brajabhumi. There is no limit to their fortune because the absolute truth, the source of transcendental bliss, the eternal supreme Brahman, has become their friend. And then refers to this verse, chapter 12, text 39. That's what we're discussing this evening. If even only once or even by force one brings the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead into one's mind, by the way, his name and his form are non-different, one can attain the supreme salvation by the mercy of Krishna, as did Aghasura. What then is to be said of those whose hearts the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna enters when he appears as an incarnation, or those who always think of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the source of transcendental bliss for all living entities, and by whom all illusion is completely removed? Here's some more. This is chapter 64. This is the Nriga story. My dear Lord Krishna, you are the Super Soul situated in everyone's heart. There are many great mystic yogis who have eyes to see you through the Vedas and the Upanishads. In order to achieve the elevated position of being equal in quality with you, they always meditate on you within their hearts. Although such exalted saintly persons may see you constantly within their hearts, they still cannot see you eye to eye. Therefore, I am very much surprised that I'm able to see you personally. Although I was in the midst of luxury and opulence and was subjected to so much happiness and misery of material existence, I am so fortunate to be seeing you personally. As far as I know, when one becomes liberated from material existence, he can see you in this way. Or, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, 1427, Brahmanohi Pratishtaham. I'm the basis of impersonal Brahman. Jiva Goswami writes, commentary, actually one cannot see Krishna with material eyes. The sight must be specifically empowered by the Lord's grace before one may be able to see him in his original form as Krishna. So this is once in a day of Brahma, Krishna shows himself. He performs his Prakat Lila, and when he performs his Prakat Lila, he's making himself visible to anybody, everybody. Bad people, good people, and everybody in between. And it's a merciful manifestation. And some people don't understand, that's okay. Some people criticize, that's okay. Krishna isn't affected because he has Swarup Shakti. He doesn't become contaminated by their impurity. He just shows mercy. And it's similar to the Mahamantra. And it's similar to the deity form. It's similar to Prasadam, manifestations of Krishna in this world. But when he shows his form in his Prakat Lila, there's exchanges. People can see the exchanges with his devotees and so forth and so on. So for his Prakat Lila to be manifest, it's his mercy. It's big time mercy. Even bad people can see him. This is confirmed by Lord Krishna himself in the following words, Bhagavad Gita. Naham prakasha sarvasya. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my eternal creative potency, Yogamaya. And so the deluded world knows me not, who am unborn and infallible. And moving on, this is two more little references from Krishna Sandarbha. Jiva Goswami writes, well, first I'll give an explanation. There's a system of logic or nyaya that was propounded by Gautama. And Gautama was explaining through principles of logic how to understand things that are in the Vedas that are difficult to understand. So he has different little logic principles. Jiva Goswami learned them before he even went to Vrindavan. He studied them under Madhusudana Vachaspati in Benares, directed to go there by Lord Nityananda. And so he's now giving us a Nyaya principle. It's called Kai Mutya Nyaya. Kai Mutya Nyaya. Nyaya. It's to understand something unknown, you can compare that something unknown to something that is known that's inferior. So using Kaimutya, Nyaya, Krishna's independent form is described. So try to see if you can pick up on the inferior is known, and he's trying to help. Kaimutya Nyaya is being used by Akrura to help understand Krishna's form by understanding something that's lesser, but is known. If, this is our verse for today, if even only once, or even by force, one brings the form of Lord Krishna into one's mind, Krishna awards himself as the goal. Residing within, he gives the jivas the experience of bliss by destroying all Maya completely. What can be said about his response to a favorable person then? So it's more understandable Krishna is reciprocating with those who are nice to him. And not so easy to understand those that are not so nice to him, but they fix their mind on him anyway. Of anger, hatred, fear, lust. He gives bliss to them and destroys all Maya completely. That's what happened to Aghasura. He saw Krishna. Krishna stepped in his purposely. Krishna placed his lotus feet in his mouth. And who wants to put a foot in the mouth of a serpent? But he's a big serpent. But he did the same thing with his brother. Bakasura they were brothers. He entered into the mouth of Baka and purified Baka. He wanted to do that. He wanted to liberate him. So he did, by purifying him. Even though his attitude was negative, he became purified. And we'll end this little section. Again, it's Krishna Sandarbha. Sometimes there's an argument that goes like this. If even the demons attain salvation by the mercy of Krishna, then what is to be said about the devotees, which was presented by Shukadeva Goswami in the following verse, this evening's verse, the text 39. It also indicates that the lotus form of Krishna is the original aspect of the personality of Godhead. That's our evening verse. Here we go again. If even only once, or even by force, one brings the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead into one's mind, one can attain the supreme salvation by the mercy of Krishna, as did Aghasura. What then is to be said of those whose hearts the Supreme Personality of Godhead enters when he appears as an incarnation? Or those who always think of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the source of transcendental bliss for all living entities, and by whom all illusion is completely removed. So the inference that this is the original form of Krishna is that connected to other sections of understanding the special nature of Krishna. There's the special nature of Krishna. One of the features is his mercy it supersedes that of all the other expansions of the personality of Godhead. In other words, when Hiranyakashipu and Ravana were killed, they didn't achieve liberation. They were relieved of their sins. In that sense, everything was neutralized, but they didn't attain the spiritual world. And I've asked some learned devotee godbrothers, where did they go? They spent a long time, between one yuga and another yuga. They had to be somewhere, because the next lifetime they became who they became. So Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara, where'd they go? No answer. Or there's no information in scriptures or writings of our acharyas where they did go. But we know where they didn't go. They didn't go to the spiritual world. But when killed by Krishna, not only Shishupal and Dantavakra returned to the spiritual world, but there's a long list. Canto 2, Chapter 7, something like 34, 35. It gives a long list of those killed by Krishna, not only killed in Vrindavan, but killed wherever Krishna killed demons, and those that were killed on behalf of Krishna. Bhima, Arjuna, and the Kaurava army, or the Pandava army, killed different persons, and they achieved liberation on behalf of Krishna. And then specifically it says either Sayuja or Saropya. That's not so for all the other forms of Vishnu avatars that kill demons. They don't go to the spiritual world. There's something very special about Krishna and being killed in the presence of Krishna, Krishna's presence. So Krishna is making his form available through his Prakat Lila, and then interacting with whoever he interacts with. It's the greatest. Comparatively, it's superlative. And that's the Bhagavatam's message. So other names, like, Vishnu Sahasranam and names of Vishnu, fine. And we like the name Krishna. And there's reason. And the reason is disclosed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, including when killing Aghasura. This thing happened where everyone saw his soul merge into the body of Krishna. It is then said, by Krishna's mercy, it doesn't give the technology of how he did it, he then transferred him from the Brahmajyoti to the Vaikuntha planets with a four-arm form. Krishna's mercy. It's very rare. There's a purport later in the 8th canto that speaks about this. It's very rare from Sayuja go to Vaikuntha, but there's cases, and it's Krishna's mercy. Here's an example. Aghasura achieved that position. So that's the topic for the evening. How does a bad person like Aghasura get liberation? And not just Sayuja, but in Prabhupada is, in his purports, very clear. Sa-rupya, a form like the Lord. He was absorbed. He was absorbed in a bad way, but he was absorbed. And this little moment of devotion, let Krishna be with the cowherd boys, let the cowherd boys be with Krishna. A little service to the cowherd boys, along with a bunch of other bad stuff. A little devotion. Salokya, Sarupya. So let's see if there's some discussion. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much. I found an amazing connection between the previous discussion and this discussion.
Oh, really?
To Jan's question of uh, taking it to the next level, and you answering about desire, and this verse that you picked today also talks about desire. My question is, Maharaj, is with respect to Agasura. So you you mentioned that he had that one moment, and that one moment changed his destination.
Yes.
Um, but we, I mean, we are not aware of Agasura's past, but for us, it's a big struggle. Um, I mean, I'm not saying that we are unfortunate, but from a practical point of view, is there any background of Agasura's past?
Yes.
Can you please enlighten us on that?
My memory is failing me at the moment, but my computer has a better memory than my memory. So if you allow me to move on to the next question, I'll come back to Agasura in his previous life. But you know, the more important is whatever he was in his previous life. That it was but a moment of devotion, and we struggle, which was one of the main points you were making. But Krishna sees our struggle, and Krishna sees our devotion, and he'll help us. And part these from the sadhaka position, like these 5 things, and that Narada's saying, we want to get to the sneha position. We're in the regular position right now. We're not going to go to the other, the enmity and the fear and the lust. We're going to go to the regulative and then sneha positions. So Krishna sees whatever bhakti it is that we have, whatever struggle we're going through, Krishna sees. And our devotional cultivation is not, while staying within the boundaries or the protection of sadhana, the vidhis of sadhana bhakti, that's keep us clean and safe. But it's really the emotion, the feeling with which we're doing those things, the making of offering, reconnect with Krishna, aspiration, yearning. Kabhi habe bolo tse dinamar. When will that day become? That the soul's hankering. Krishna sees that, or if we don't, Krishna sees that, and he just reciprocates. He's not like judging us; he's reciprocating. It's all about relationships. Krishna consciousness is all about relationships. Do we want a relationship with Krishna? It's not easy because we have relationship with things that are of the material world, and we're attached to those things of the material world. Without listing, it's a long list. So, within the boundaries of regulative, the essence is the 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 mood of making that Krishna connection strong. That's yoga, bhakti yoga, serving in the particular mood. So let me just pause for a second. See, where do I have this? Okay. Previous lives of demons killed by Krishna and Braja. Okay. Agasura. In his previous life, he was Agha, a son of Sakasura. Let's get the whole story. hang on. Ooh. Here we go. In his previous life, Aghasura was also known as Agha and was the son of Shankasura. He was extremely strong, and his bodily beauty was so striking that he exactly resembled Cupid. One time, Agha was in the Malaya mountains and he happened upon Ashtavakra Muni, who was performing austerities there. At that time, Ashtavakra's body was uniquely bent in 8 places. And on beholding this peculiar deformity, Agha laughed. The demon was intoxicated by his own alluring appearance and thus was filled with false confidence. In mocking tones he demanded, "Who is this grotesque-looking fellow?" Becoming deeply displeased by this arrogant conduct, the Muni addressed him gravely. "Oh, fool! Although I may have to bend awkwardly sometimes, I guarantee that you, in a snake's body, will be forced to twist and curve in every movement you ever make. Moreover, I hope that the experience of having a hideous form will help you appreciate just how narcissistic and proud you have become." Quickly coming to his senses, Agha fell at the feet of the sage and begged forgiveness. Being pleased to see his change of attitude, Ashtavakra told him, "Although you'll become a snake when Lord Krishna, who is more beautiful than millions of cupids, enters your stomach, you will be liberated." In his next life, Agha first met Kamsa in South India on one beach. Kamsa had traveled to that region to conquer it for himself, and when Agha saw him, he began to hiss and show his tongue. With great courage, Kamsa attacked him, ultimately beating him very severely. When Agha was too weak to fight anymore, Kamsa triumphantly picked him up, strung him around his neck like a garland, and carried him off. In this way, Agha became one of Kamsa's servants. By the mercy of Krishna, Agha ultimately achieved Sayuja Mukti and then Saropya Mukti, which is difficult even for demigods to attain. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Today we were talking about the divine vision, right? So the devotees and the demons, they have the divine vision of looking for the Supreme Lord. So what will be their mind state? So in the same way, like devotees love friendship state and the demons will be in the hatred state for looking at the Supreme Lord. I don't know, the question is clear or not.
That question is not clear. Does any...
The question is like, what will be the vision of the demon? Or what kind of a vision they will have? I mean, Krishna is obviously showing mercy, but the question is what kind of a vision?
The vision is like they can see the Krishna, but the mindset, how that goes.
Okay, thank you. It depends. I mean, there's a very nice, celebrated verse when Krishna enters the wrestling arena of Kamsa, and different persons saw him in different ways. You know that verse? It starts off saying the wrestler saw him as a thunderbolt. Kamsa saw him as death personified. And the elders saw him as their darling little boy. And the gopis saw them as their dear most beloved. And different people, the yogis saw him as Paramatma. So the vision, there's several more. The vision of the Lord depends upon the regard that they have for him. Like let's say the washerman, when he saw there's these little boys, and you're insolent. These clothes belong to King Kamsa. If he knew that you're asking for his clothes, you'd be dead. You better watch out. And he insulted the boys. Krishna didn't like that. So, but how he said this little boys from the village, that's how they saw him. Demons. And he got liberation. And Krishna got the clothes. So it depends how they see. Different will see differently. We know that, for example, because it's mentioned specifically by our acharyas, how Ravana saw Ram and how Hiranyakashipu saw Nrsingadev. They saw him as a person with some mystic power, or a person with some special abilities, but that's okay. I have more special abilities than anybody. So that's how different we'll see differently. Some were wondering, maybe he's a demigod. They see differently. But they couldn't be even able to see his form differently if it weren't for his giving him the eyes to see his form. And that goes along with his pastimes. And when his pastimes are over, he withdraws his pastimes, and only his pure devotees can see. Okay.
Guru Maharaj, when Lord Brahma came out of the navel in the lotus flower, and then finally he was able to hear the flute of Krishna, and then he got the vision of the whole spiritual world. So did that happen in his heart, or did Krishna
before his
come?
eyes?
Okay, the whole spiritual world.
Yeah, it's similar to 2nd Canto, Chapter 9. He saw, not within his heart. The Lord made himself visible to Brahma. In Brahma Samhita and in 2nd Canto, Chapter 9, the Lord made himself visible. The description is different, but he made himself visible.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj.
We have some online? No? You have something. Which one? Okay. There was a question from the morning class, and where is it? Okay. So this is Canto 7, Chapter 1, text number 8. When the quality of goodness is prominent, the sages and demigods flourish with the help of that quality, with which they are infused and surcharged by the Supreme Lord. Similarly, when the mode of passion is prominent, the demons flourish. And when ignorance is prominent, the yakshas and rakshasas flourish. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is present in everyone's heart, fostering the reactions of Sattva-guna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna. So now, that's the verse, and the question is specifically what? Here's the microphone.
Like, how is this explaining Supreme Lord is equal to everyone? How is this? It seems to be explaining, like from morning discussion about Paramatma, But then in the purport, Prabhupada describes about Bhagavad Sandarbha and talks about Bhagavan feature involved in this.
Well, that's okay. So you're asking two different questions. One is it Paramat or Bhagavan? That's one question. And the other is how is it neutral? If there are different modes being manifest, how is he being neutral? Yes? So, while Jiva Goswami makes reference in Paramatma Sandarbha to the Supreme Lord reciprocating with living entities, because after all, that's a Paramatma function. Bhagavan is more related to the devotees, but Bhagavan isn't non-related to those who are forgetful of him. He's still Bhagavan. So the functions can overlap, like a Venn diagram, right? So there's some overlap. This is a Paramatma function. This is a Bhagavan function. There can be some overlap. So it's not, if it says this, then it can't be that. And if it says that, it can't be this. It can be an overlap of function. And the neutrality position has everything to do with this is the fate and free will question. It's related to that. That is, the Supreme Lord makes arrangements, Paramatma or Bhagavan, makes arrangements for living entity according to their past guna and karma. He doesn't whimsically, but according to their past or their disposition by guna, he engages them in this guna, that guna, the other guna activity. Thus they take a body and have impulses born of the modes of material nature according to their previous involvement in karma and guna. So then they're awarded with a situation that matches their disposition. And that way he's neutral, but they're still involved with the modes. All right? Yes? Behind you?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Pure devotees, they are happy wherever they are. They actually don't desire for moksha. The only thing they ask is wherever I am, I want to be in service of Krishna. That's the pure devotee's mood. That's what I heard. In other side, I see like Radharani, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Tukaram, Mirabai, many devotees. They actually cry and they feel the separation of Krishna. So I want to understand these two things, Maharaj.
Two things in response. One is that devotees don't hanker for liberation because devotional service is from the liberated position. It's already there. It's a subset of their bhakti. So they don't aspire for something they already have. Bhakti is from the liberated position. That's one part. The other is, why they're crying or hankering. It's viraha bhav. It's part of the mood of love. Say it this way. For love to be complete, there must be both, meeting and separation. Say it negatively. With only meeting, it's incomplete without separation. I mean, take any situation, even a worldly situation. I did this with the Chinese devotees. We had this Zoom call. So I know that there's two devotees that have a friendship. So I said, what if this devotee called you up and said, yeah, I'd like to come and visit, and I'd like to spend a whole month with you. How would that? Oh, that'd be great. And but there's one condition. You can't be with anybody else for the whole month, 24/7. You can't do any other activity. You can't do anything other than be with me. Is that okay? Well, I have, my mother I'm taking care of, and I have to go to work, and no, you can't do those things. So it's not, that just there's meeting and separation in any relationship. Only separation is incomplete. Only meeting is incomplete. So it's part of their feeling of relationship. It's a feeling of love in separation. They're with, but they're feeling separate from. It's part of that relationship. Like Prabhupada explains that the gopis, they're feeling separation from Krishna when he's with the cowherd boys during the day. Chapter 35, it's really wonderful. They can't wait till he comes back. And then when he's with them, there's still an apprehension, after some time he's going to be gone. The feeling of anticipation of separation is with them even when there's meeting. It's part of relationship. It's one of the verses of the 6 Goswami prayers. Hey Radhe Vrajadevi Ke. So they're with Krishna, seeing him at the same time. Where is he? Is he by the river Jamuna? Is he on this side of Govardhan Hill? Have you seen him? Where is he now? Oh, the Lord of my life. Govinda Virahe Name. Okay? You have something? One online question.
Worship Prabhu, he says, in the previous class it was mentioned, when fear and ego is removed, prema manifests. So he's wondering if there are any emotions mentioned in Shastra where you can develop them so they can counteract and help you remove fear and ego.
Well, I'm not sure what he's asking, but what comes to mind is the 6 principles of surrender. For example, fear is counteracted by a sense of being protected, which is one of the 6 limbs of surrender. So we want shelter. This is, Sharanagati in general. We want shelter, and one of the impetuses for wanting shelter is we want to feel protected. So if we want shelter, or if we want to feel protected, that's an antidote for fear. And the other is false ego, right? So read Bhagavad Gita and cultivate an understanding of what our true identity is. Listen to Prabhupada's recorded lectures. And it's, you're a punching bag, a false ego punching bag. He really works people over to, get the right understanding. So it evolves as Krishna Bhakti evolves, but Krishna Bhakti is assisted to evolve by proper understanding of Bhagavad Gita's message. So read it with that view in mind. Receive Krishna's mercy to take away the false conception and restore the original conception. Okay? Oh, okay. Srila Prabhupada. Yes? Sure. Here's the microphone. Thank you.
So we were discussing about the Krishna giving mercy and and the person opposite being a devotee or a demon getting divine vision to see him. How do we understand Dhruva Maharaj's pastime, where Dhruva was following sincerely Narada's instructions, and then he actually perceived the Lord within his heart, and Krishna disappeared. And when he opened his eyes, he saw Krishna. So that, does it mean that Krishna gave him the vision to see him at that point, or just want to
Yes,
understand
he
that
gave him the vision to see when he was in his heart, and he gave him the vision to see when he came before him. But you can't see him come before you without Krishna's giving his mercy to that person to see him, to come. He literally came, and he showed himself, and they spoke. So, yes. But it was mercy even just to see him within his heart. Just it's more mercy to see him before him, and then touch him with his conch shell, and that didn't happen in his heart. It's like the nectar devotion story of the Brahmana that worshipped in his mind, and when his thumb or something was burned in the sweet rice, his meditation was broken, and Lord Narayan in the spiritual world was smiling, and the goddess Lakshmi said, what is causing your smiling this way? My devotee has made this nice offering. I'm going to send messengers to bring him to me. So it was the Lord in his meditation, but it's also simultaneously the Lord in Vaikuntha. And the Lord in his meditation is not the same. It is the same and different. The experience is the same and different, simultaneously different. I mean, it's a big deal in a number of places where the yogis in meditation may see, but it's just like this Shukadev Goswami verse in this chapter 12. The yogis, after many, many lifetimes, their minds are fixed upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, but they will not be able to touch even one particle of dust from his lotus feet. Which the cowherd boys, they're with him all the time. Dust and everything else. So meditation is not as complete. It's the same. It is the form of the Lord, but it's not as complete as seeing. So more mercy. More mercy. That's a kura. He's going to see Krishna. And then he's not only going to see Krishna, he's going to bow before Krishna. Not only that, Krishna's going to place his hand on his head. And not only that, Krishna's going to smile. And Krishna's going to speak to him. Oh, Uncle Kura. Because he's feeling, I'm representing Kamsa, and maybe I'm not worthy. And so, but he's going to embrace me. So that's just his meditation, but all those things happen. And when they happen, it's more than just meditation. It starts with meditation. That's the access we have presently. But the hankering is personal presence. Touch the Lord's lotus feet. Serve his lotus feet. See his smile. Receive his favorable glance and all those things. Okay? Prabhupada ki jai.